All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and get the regular city council meeting called to order. If you would, silence your cell phones, put them on vibrate. Oh, I better do it myself. Just kidding. Then after we do this, we're going to have a moment of silence, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Dodd. So please rise for a moment of silence. All right, thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mayor Jones.
Here.
Vice Mayor Nunn.
Here.
Councilmember Dixon. Here. Councilmember Dodd.
Here.
And Councilmember McPartlin.
Here. All right, we're good. Okay. Council, are there any agenda modifications? Hearing none, we'll move on to brief announcements. Vice Mayor Nunn.
Yes. On May 25th, the Florida Department of Transportation public meeting will be here at City Hall from 5 to 7:30 p.m. to discuss the SR5 US 1 resurfacing project from Harrison Street to Davis Street. Monday, May 29th is the Memorial Day observance, 11 a.m. at the Veterans Memorial in Riverview Park.
All right, thank you so much for that, sir. On the public input, this is public input for anything that's not new, that's not on the current agenda. But before we take anyone else, I want to invite Jim from the Marine Resources Council to come forward, and he's going to do a short presentation for us about a project that they have adjacent to our city. Jim, use that one over there.
Good evening, council members, mayor, vice mayor. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the opportunity to show the property to the mayor last week. It was my pleasure. The Marine Resources Council has been involved with a piece of property on the south prong of the St. Sebastian for many, many years now. And we have the St. Sebastian River Greenway and Preserve and now nursery. We've been nurturing mangroves out at that facility for many years now. And many of the mangrove restoration projects up and down the lagoon have used those mangroves to support the ecosystem and support shoreline stabilization. Marine Resources Council has been in operation for about 32 years. Its headquarters are up in Palm Bay. We have operations in all 5 counties up and down the Indian River Lagoon. I happen to live in Stewart. I am now the temporary executive director of the Marine Resources Council. And we have been working with restoration projects for the entire 18 years that I've been a member of the Marine Resources Council. And we look forward to doing that here. The St. Sebastian River Greenway is probably fairly familiar to all of you. This is, again, more of who we are, and it's pretty clear that mangroves are in our DNA. Our mission is, like many of the other ecologically oriented not-for-profits up and down the lagoon, it is to restore the Indian River Lagoon and to bring its health back into a condition where it is functioning as an ecological system, and also to improve the habitat. And we are also responsible for monitoring water quality up and down the lagoon, and have been involved in that aspect of citizen science for 32 years. So our property is at the purple marker. It is part of the Greenway and part of 4 different properties that comprise that greenway, and we are actually 2 of those. This is an example of where we are and how really sort of influential into restoring the sort of the headwaters of the South Prong. And the graphic that we're showing is what we propose to develop as a pathway structure. The 2 main structures that are sort of shown with the education center and the storage house are actually the caretaker's house and what will eventually be an ed center. We have this house as the caretaker's house, and also the sign at the front of the property. And what we are proposing to do is to have a seagrass nursery that works alongside our mangrove nursery out there. And we would be operating in collaboration with RES in order to do that. Our goal is to be able to do full-scale restorations from the trees to the seas, so that we would be working in uplands through the transitional zones and into the watershed and to the aquatic habitat.
Jim, I'm sorry to...
Go ahead.
Can you get a little closer to the mic or speak up a little bit?
Certainly, I apologize. Is that better?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So our goal is to denitrify the watershed as best we can by providing greenscape between the pollution source and the waterways. And I think one way to look at that is it's a whole lot easier to not put the cream in the coffee than it is to take the cream out of the coffee. And so this is what we propose to do, and that is to work in collaboration with RES, which is one of the largest restoration companies in the country, to do just that, to develop 25, 26 ponds, they're pools where freshwater tolerant seagrasses would be nurseryed. We don't propose to have any direct connection into the South Prong of the St. Sebastian. The salts and the other additives would be recycled through the system. We would be using on-site water as well as well water in order to provide those resources for that vegetative material. We propose to put an ADA accessible composting restroom on the site, and to enhance the trail system and the access from our street access into the South Prong of the St. Sebastian River. The mangrove nursery is indicated on the key to that. Spartina grass would be located next to the mangroves. The waters used for the seagrass nursery would recycle through the mangrove nursery and into those Spartina grasses. We propose to have mangroves, red and black, green and silver buttonwood, and also to work with the Spartina grasses in the nearshore and upland transition zones. And then the aquatic vegetation would be mostly the purview of RES. We would have some research tanks as well that we could work on different species, as well as trying to improve the resiliency of those species that we're using in the tributaries in particular. So we're really not focused currently on the lagoon proper, but we're focusing on tributaries and also stormwater treatment areas, so that we can develop a better. That's it. Thank you very much. And we look forward to being a presence here in the restoration of the Indian River Lagoon and the St. Sebastian River. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. Mara, did you have anything to add to that?
Hi, I'm Mara Gaddis.
Come to the mic, Mara.
Yeah, Mara.
Thank you, Jim. So hi, my name is Mara Skadden. I am a restoration scientist for Marine Resources Council. So this project is my baby, and I will be running the nursery and the property for MRC.
Thank you.
As well as living in...
Oh yeah, also living in the caretaker's house.
Oh,
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys so much for
Thank
that.
you very much. And thank you for your time this evening, and thank you for your support and for your visit the other day, Ms. Mayor. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak on anything new that is not on the current agenda? Do we have anyone on Zoom?
Nobody's raised their hand.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda, council.
Move approval, consent agenda item A through H.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Hearing none. Does anyone from the public would like to speak on this? Anything on the consent agenda? All right, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Vice Mayor Nunn,
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin,
Yes.
and Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, anybody have any committee reports?
I do.
Yes, Vice Mayor?
This week, or I should say this past week, past Wednesday, I had the opportunity to attend our Tourist Development Council meeting. It's an exciting meeting because that's when we assign, we listen to all the different presentations from all the organizations requesting money from the Tourist Development Council. What that money is money that's called bed tax. So anywhere that, like a hotel that puts heads on beds, that tax goes into the tourist fund for the state, and then the state delivers that to our county, and then our county distributes to our Chamber of Commerce and to our other nonprofit organizations that submit requests for that money. It's actually interesting because it really shows where we are as far as being a tourist destination, and Sebastian is a tourist destination. As of March, we were up 9% of the budget for the year, which was already a huge increase over the previous year. This year so far, year to date, we're up 13.5% over the budget for the first 3 months of the year. So that's amazing. That's $355,000 in tax that the people that visit Sebastian are putting back into our economy to bring more people here. So very good meeting. Learned a lot of things. In our county, we have 8,300 hospitality-based jobs. So it's a great meeting, great time. Thank you.
All right, any other committee reports? All right, the next thing on our agenda is a public hearing, and this would be item 10A, first reading and quasi-judicial public hearing for ordinance number O-23-07. This hearing is now open. Mr. Mai.
An ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Florida, designating a zoning classification of RM10 medium-density multifamily residential district from current zoning designation of RM8 medium-density multifamily residential district for land located on Louisiana Avenue, consisting of 15.75 acres, more or less, known as Sebastian Oaks, and surrounded by multifamily residential zone property, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Mai. Council members, anybody have any ex parte communication?
No, sir. Nope.
Nope, none. All right, City Clerk, can you swear in anyone who's going to testify in this matter?
Okay, this is for the Sebastian Oaks item. Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and the factual representation which you are about to give or present during this public hearing will be truthful and accurate? Yes. Thank you.
All right, you may be seated. The applicant, will you please come forward and do your presentation?
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Fred?
Good. How are you guys?
Hey, Council. Dennis Hopt. I own this property. I always say that to Fred when I see him in all the events. I live in Sebastian. For context, my daughter, 32 years old, graduated from Sebastian High. I'm a mile from the project. I'll be at the tennis court Saturday from 7 to 10, and I'll be at Halo from 11 to 1 doing laundry. I see Mr. Nunn, while campaigning, almost saw me get hit by a car while jogging at 510 in US 1, and like I said, Mr. and Mrs. Jones we run into all the time at all the events. He's everywhere. I just wanted to put a name to the face, so you know that before a narrative starts where there's some evil developer coming into our town and desecrating our lands. It's me, I'm just me, and I have hired everybody else to do all the talking. So, thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Good evening. My name is Jonathan Barquette. I represent the applicant, Sebastian Oaks, LLC. We also have Sean Green, our engineer here, as well as Rebecca Mulcahy, our traffic engineer. We're here to answer all the questions you may have. Briefly, as you know, Sebastian Oaks is simply requesting a rezoning from RM8 to RM10. I'd like to point out that tonight we are only here for the zoning change, and that the property is already zoned RM8. So, as a matter of law, it can already be developed RM8, and it will be developed as medium-density residential, regardless of the decision here tonight. Please note that the applicant is only seeking an additional 18 units. He's not maximizing what he could apply for under RM10. He's only seeking an additional 18 units. As you'll see from the staff report, the proposed change is compatible with the surrounding properties. It conforms with the requirements of the Code of Ordinances and the Land Development Code. Excuse me. Now, it was apparent from the Planning and Zoning meeting a few weeks ago that there are concerns about traffic. We acknowledge those concerns, and we're prepared to address them as needed. However, many of those concerns would be appropriately addressed at the site planning level. Again, tonight we're just here for the zoning change. We'd like to point out that for the purposes of tonight's meeting, a change from RM8 to RM10 would only be an increase of an additional 16 peak hour trips. That's 16 peak hour trips if you go from RM8 to RM10. The traffic study shows that the development meets the adopted level of service standards and requirements of the city. The study specifically shows that Louisiana Avenue, Main Street, and Sebastian Boulevard can support the additional traffic. The applicant is prepared to work with the city and address any improvements needed to this at the site plan phase. And the applicant has already confirmed that he will provide an updated traffic study if required at that time. So we're happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, sir. If we have any questions, we'll call you back. Staff?
Good evening, Council. Yes, this is a request from Sebastian Oaks to rezone their property, not a land use change, just the zoning. The land use is changing as medium-density residential, and per our new comprehensive plan, we have raised the density from that medium-density residential future land use designation from 8 units to 10 units. But this is a request for zoning from RM8 to RM10. The RM10, Exhibit A in your packet, is a new zoning district that was recently approved by council. It does mimic the RM8 zoning district. We tweaked it, though, so that it would allow to get some affordable housing in. So some of the minimum living areas were changed, parking were changed. The ordinance has been adopted by council. It's not been codified, so if anybody looked for it in the code book or online, it might not be in there, but it is an approved ordinance. So the application, Mr. Hopt is requesting to change his zoning from RM8 to RM10. There was a site plan that was submitted in 2021. It did receive a first round of review from staff, and we sent those comments. At that time, they did start thinking and re-looked at their plan and felt that they could get another building in with the new zoning district, an RM10 zoning designation. and put the site plan review on hold and has started the process with this application, with it culminating in tonight's decision from council. The staff did include the traffic analysis that was submitted, not with the site plan. This has been an updated traffic analysis that from our comments from the initial review, they have addressed those, but this hasn't been formally resubmitted to staff with the revised site plan, but we understand that they did address some of our comments. At the Planning and Zoning Commission, there was a little bit of discussion on the dates on when that traffic study, this traffic analysis and some of the traffic counts were done, if it was done during a COVID time and times of the day. So I know that that was a concern with planning and zoning, or at least a discussion, if you read through their minutes on their concern with the traffic. But since traffic analysis is consistent with concurrency, it is okay to consider the traffic concerns with this application. Staff has also provided in our staff report the items, the comprehensive plan consistency items that the councils must consider in your reviewing and your decision on this rezoning request. Staff, per our review and research, we feel that it is consistent with the zoning map and the zoning code. It would, City Council should review these items and determine if you would like to approve this tonight, first reading, and schedule the second reading for June 14th, or if there is a decision tonight to deny the request, a second reading is not necessary.
All right, thank you so much. Anybody from the council have any questions? No?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. So now we're going to go ahead and open the floor to anyone in favor of this request. All right, hearing none. Do we have anybody on Zoom that's in favor?
Nobody has raised their hand.
All right, move on to anyone opposing the request. Please come forward, give your name.
Good evening, council members. My name is Bethany Fortunato, and I'm the owner and developer of Grace's Landing, a 70-unit affordable senior housing property that's located on the corner of Louisiana Avenue and what is it? No, it's not Maine. I'm blank. It starts with an F. I'm blanking. Foster. Yeah, Palmetto. Thank you. Yes. Completely lost. So, the average age of my residents is late 70s to early 80s, and I have concerns mainly because of the traffic that will be generated. Louisiana Avenue, as we all know, is one of the oldest streets in the city of Sebastian. It's a very narrow street. It's wider at the end where Grace's Landing is located, and it gets narrower as you travel south. The access points to this property are located around a curve, so it's going to cause visibility issues for people who are traveling in the southerly direction. I was unable to attend the Planning Commission meeting because I was hosting an event at my home. It was a fundraiser for a World War II memorial that we're going to be doing in Vero Beach at the Veterans Memorial Island Sanctuary, and the date got changed for the meeting after the invitations had already gone out, so I couldn't be here. I did have some residents who were here and spoke, and I also had our manager, Jane Sonia. So I did submit my comments in an email, and I'm just going to highlight some of those to you this evening. With relative to traffic, according to the Institute of Transportation Engineers, Trip Generation 7th Edition, Volume 2, there are 6.72 automobile trips per apartment housing unit per day on a weekday, 6.39 trips per unit on Saturdays, and 5.86 trips per unit on Sundays. At the current RM8 zoning, which allows for 126 units, this will generate an average of 847 trips per weekday on Louisiana Avenue. With the rezoning and a potential for an additional 30 units, this would add an additional 202 trips per weekday for a total of 1,054 trips per weekday, or an increase of 23.8% traffic on Louisiana Avenue over the 847 trips for 126 units at the current RM8 zoning. And that doesn't account for UPS trucks, Amazon deliveries, and such. As shown by the above numbers, adding the potential for an additional 30 units would cause an even greater impact to the traffic flow on Louisiana Avenue, which leads to concern for public safety, especially for my senior residents, who may be traveling in a southerly direction down Louisiana Avenue towards the property from Grace's Landing, with a potential visibility issues to the north for vehicles exiting the property on the curve. So I would ask that the council give strong consideration to my comments and concerns when making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, anyone else?
You want to have them make a line or not?
Yeah, I will.
My name is Rob Gribrook. I live at 1041
Wait till you get to the mic, sir.
My name is Rob Gribrook. I live at 1041 Foster Road in Sebastian. I come from 3 generations that have lived on Foster Road. The area is very well, I know the area very well, and I think that a great deal of infrastructure changes are going to have to be made for this to be viable, even with MR8, to be honest with you. Louisiana and coming into Main Street is not a viable. The only thing that I could think of possibly is to restrict a left-hand turn onto Louisiana during the railroad debacle here that's going to happen. We're going to have a bullet coming through our city 30 or whatever. How many times is it? 30, 40, 60 times a day?
A lot.
At 110 miles an hour. When the older people get stuck on that track, because it happens all the time, if you're coming west on, driving west on Main Street, and you're taking a left on Louisiana, which all of us do, it doesn't matter who's behind you, they lock up right on those tracks. And those tracks start coming down sometimes. And when the onset of this happening at so many times a day, there's going to be panic. And it's also blocking off the access to US 1 and Main Street, where it's blocking the traffic, even coming in from Indian River Drive. It's not viable, and also the infrastructure isn't ready for the amount of traffic that's going to be coming off of into 512, because you have a blind angle coming off of that. When people come off those railroad tracks and they're heading west, you have to be right on it, and if you slam down your gas, because if you don't, you're going to get hit. That's why there's accidents there all the time. It's very, hard to see. And then if you're going to go all the way over to High Street and then take a left onto 512 eastbound, there's another blind spot. I actually go down the side street there and go into Sandy's parking lot or by the VFW to take a left so I can see what's coming, because I can't even see the cars coming up off the hill because they're, hitting the hill. It's a real bad situation, and I'm afraid with 1,000 cars, and because even our little street, we have probably 5 to 10 service trucks come down through there, UPS, FedEx, Amazon. And if you're going to have a younger population of people who are going to be utilizing a lot of those services, more than Grace's Landing does and stuff, you're going to have too much traffic. There's too much traffic now, and especially if they do any sort of study, it should be from October until probably like after Easter, because it's doubled that time of year. It's just absolutely doubled, and that's when it would be very, very important, because you have a lot of people who don't know what they're doing driving on that street, and it's I just feel like it's going to be a bloodbath. I really, honestly, unless they do some sort of eminent domain and knock the church's store out and put in a light or something, it's just going to be just a devastating situation, and I'm just completely against it. And shout out to the animals that live there too. I hate to see them go, because it's just devastating to see some of the last images of the high hammock being destroyed in our town. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Jane Sonia. I'm the manager of Grace's Landing. I've been there for 11 years now. I'm kind of piggybacking on what everyone else said. I was present for the planning and zoning meeting, and the traffic is going to be a problem. I drive Louisiana Ave 5 times, 6 times a day, every day. And I'm a very good driver, and I have my ability of seeing. I have quick feet. I can get on my brake. I can get on my gas. My seniors don't have that ability as well as I do, and I struggle on Louisiana Ave right now. 126 units, okay, if that's going to go in, that's fine. We're here to not allow any more. What scares me most is the zoning, the rezoning, will go with the land, not with the project. So in the future, say this doesn't pan out, the future might not just be 18 more units. The future might have them build out to the, as much as they can. So the rezoning is, the 126, if that's already there, then that's there. But I don't think that we should reconsider how to use that land, especially if it's just 18 units. Just leave it at the 126, because it is going to be a struggle. And that gentleman used the word bloodbath on the road. I tend to agree. I've been driving that road for years now, and the changes in the last couple of years are extraordinary. And being that the traffic survey was done during COVID, that's completely unfair. Just in the last 2 years with the migration of everyone to Florida, that road has become something different, as well as 512. So just consider that when you consider this request. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Anyone else? So we have one person coming up. If anybody else want to speak, please line up in the back so we know and we can keep it moving.
Good evening. My name is Diana McNamara, and I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to talk about this matter. I live on Foster Road, and I've grown up in Sebastian. I attended the elementary school, grade 1 through 6. I went to Vero Beach Junior High 7 and 8. I went to Vero High from 9 to 12 and graduated. I've known this town a long time. I've seen a lot of development. I grew up on Palmetto. I had family on Foster. I've had family on Louisiana. We played these streets. They were all dirt roads. The town, up to this point, has done a great job of keeping the population and the building and the construction low. We don't have high rises and on the river, and we don't have any crazy stuff going on our town. The location of this property is 15 acres. We used to build tree huts on it. We had, Dr. Kelso had a house on there on Louisiana. We've done some crazy things in those woods. They're beautiful woods, a lot of oaks, natural oaks. I hate to see them get knocked down, but I understand that Dennis is going to put 126 units, which he is allowed because it has been zoned that. I don't know why that zoning happened, because it's the heart of our town. It's the very middle of our town. When you go up Main Street and you look around, you see houses, you see old houses, you see new houses, you see churches, you see people. We have kids growing up in that area again, because all of us grew up, we've left, some of us are coming back, and we have our grandchildren. Dennis lives in Sebastian, yes. He's not going to live in this development. He's not going to have a home here. He's not going to have grandchildren in these apartments. 126 is a lot for that area. It shouldn't be there. Turtle Run came along on Powerline Road, which used to be Blacktown. We love the area. But to put 126 units is really going to be hard on us, because all around this is primary single-family homes, except for Palmer, which is triplex, there's a duplex on Foster, and you know, basically. And then we do have the lower-income housing back behind Dennis's property, which is fine because it runs out onto Powerline Road. That's all well and good, but along this train track, Bright Line coming through, I just think it's wrong to add a couple more units. Is it the greed of the American man that he just can't be happy with 126 units? Why, in his heart, does he have to take this land and add more to it except for the almighty dollar? It doesn't make sense, because he's ruining a gorgeous piece of property that he could turn into something fabulous if he really had the heart, instead of putting 126 plus 16 more units. This is the heart of our town, and we're going to let somebody come from South Florida up here and destroy it. He could put 3 stories, and then he can put another 2-story on that property. He can tear down our oaks. He can take our wildlife. He can do all this in the heart of our town, and we're going to let him for 16 more units. Say he just does a site plan and he loses, and so he sells it to the next bidder. And the guy comes in and puts 150 units, which he'd be allowed with this zone change. This is, take a drive down the road. Go down Foster, go down Palmetto, go down Louisiana. Look over there. The woods are beautiful, the wildlife. There's like, I don't know how many turtles live there. 126 units for the American greed of 16 units. Do we have to allow that? Can't we keep our town like it is? Please consider this. Leave the heart of our town like it is. You've got good people there. Don't mess it up. Please, I beg you, from my heart. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else? And do we have anyone on Zoom?
No one has raised their hand.
All right, public input is closed. Applicant, you can respond to anything if you want to. You don't have to, but it's up to you.
I'll be brief. Thank you. We acknowledge the citizens who have spoken here tonight have the right to be heard, and they raise valid points. There are things that are going to be needed to be addressed. They acknowledge that it's zoned RM8. But in considering the change from RM8 to RM10, the council, under the law, is supposed to consider competent, substantial evidence. Traffic studies are competent, substantial evidence. Staff reports are competent, substantial evidence. This is the leading case on this matter, and I quote, "The objections of residents of the affected neighborhood are not a basis for a denial of an application. The public is given notice of these not for the purposes of polling, but so they can present facts as well." As the applicant, Dennis has had to present facts. He's had to compile reports. He has to work with the city staff, and he's got a long way to go. But the evidence supports the zoning change. I just want to make sure that that's clear to the council. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Staff, you have a final?
I did want to, I left out that, and one of the residents that came up is correct, that the zoning is going with the land, not with the project. So if something was to happen to the Sebastian Oaks site plan, the zoning of the 10 units per acre would stay with that, and another developer could come in with a different plan to get possibly that maximum. The RM8 zoning has been in that area, on that road, based on plans for the community, for the city. The city, even early as 1985, had determined that that would be an area that is closest to the river, closest to the commercial corridor for multifamily, instead of just popping it in the middle of our single-family zoning areas, that this was a good transition into our commercial. So that has historically always been RM8. But with regards to some of the concerns that the residents, a lot of them will be addressed at site plan. This is just a zoning request. There may be 8 or 9 conditions of approval of the site plan for off-site infrastructure improvements that the developer will have to do through his site plan, when again we have more of the permanent plan, traffic counts are really looked at. There may be some sort of off-site improvement to Louisiana at the Main Street and Louisiana intersection regarding trains. So some of those considerations are still going to come, especially tree preservation and some of the issues that the residents may have for the actual apartment development. So there may be some conditions attached to the site plan that also will address some of their issues. But the concern of the rezoning and raising that density and traffic concerns, because it has to do with concurrency, can be considered by the council tonight under their deliberations.
All right, Ms. Bosworth, let me ask you a question. We have something, the existing zoning for 2021 proposes 126 units, right? And now under RM10, it would go to 157, but I heard an 18 number difference. That's a difference of 31 units, not 18. What is the 18 reference?
So based on the site plan that did come in 2021 and how they had their buildings laid out, they still have to get stormwater, parking. They're adding a clubhouse and some tennis courts, I believe, in their recreational areas. After they had that and that first round of comments from staff, when they looked at that and how much stormwater they still have to have and additional parking, their engineer, Mr. Green, has looked at and determined that they could get one building in there, another 14 or 16 unit building. They're not going to be able to maximize their density of the RM10 based on the stormwater and some of the utilities and other site components that have to go in. So that's when we were trying to explain to you that they're requesting, their revised project will only bring in another 18 units, But if that project doesn't come in, the rezoning of the RM10 will stay with the property that maybe another developer design is going to bring in. They may come in, another developer may come in with smaller units and be able to get the maximum density.
Right, okay. Anybody else from council have any questions? Because we're on to the deliberation portion now, so if anybody has any questions, Mr. Dodd.
Yeah, the big question I have about RM10 was, that the RM10 was created in order to entice, I don't know, affordable, attainable, whatever you want to call it, workforce housing. And actually, when I read the Land Development Code, and thank you, Dory, for when I read the Land Development Code, it doesn't really say anything about that in the Land Development Code. It just basically gives greater density. And there's no indication that any of that density has to be reserved for workforce housing. It doesn't say, for example, that 30% of the units have to be rented to someone who makes 80% of the medium density income within the area. So I would expect that if we grant an RM10 expansion, we should get some workforce housing out of this. And I don't know how to bring that in because it's not in the Land Development Code. But RM10 was not here until the decision was made that we wanted to start to foster workforce housing or attainable housing within the city of Sebastian. RM10 has very small, I mean, I think what, 700-foot space requirements as opposed to 1,400 feet. It has some reductions in things like landscaping, some things like that entice people to come in and build affordable housing. So I'm not overly opposed to this. I understand the residents. I drove that street on the way down here this evening. I'd never been on Foster Street. Pretty street. It cannot handle the traffic for a second exit and entrance into this property. It's going to have to be redone by somebody. And I understand from the comments I've heard that it's a private street. So something has to be done there. Something will have to be done as a form of a turn lane off Louisiana as part of this project. But that can be done at site plan time. I understand that. But I'm concerned that we don't have any way to try to use the affordable housing concept that was behind RM10 in order to, in this transition that we make between RM8 and RM10. So that's my primary comment.
Right. So I know that the RM10 was created, the land use is medium density, 10 units per acre, with using incentives to get up to the 12. Yeah. The incentive part was to eventually will come before you, and where we're working on the affordable housing. So affordable housing is a little bit different from the workforce housing or the attainable housing. That is where we're going to require where you're at a medium income. The idea between what we changed in the RM10 was to allow these units to be smaller, to be able to get some more, so that the developer, for the money that they're putting in, they would be able to get more units to make them affordable. So they weren't having to pay as much money for the infrastructure and all that was having to come in. Right. They were getting more units of that, being able to pass that cost down to more attainable workforce housing in the RM10.
Yes, and I understand that concept, and that's why you drive down the required interior space in a unit down to 700 square feet to allow someone to build a smaller unit that can be either sold or rented cheaper. I mean, I'm not personally over interested in seeing 150 or 130 or 120 $1,500 to $1,700 a month two-bedroom apartments in Sebastian, because that's not affordable housing. It's not workforce housing. It's too expensive for workforce and affordable housing. So increasing density to me has to have a trade-off. So I'm basically saying right now that I would expect to see at site plan something to do with affordable housing. We just did a annexation agreement on a very large piece of property and required in that annexation agreement workforce housing. We required it as part of the annexation. So we might want to consider the possibility of trying to work something through on this regarding to that. I'm not worried about the increase in density. I understand the residents' concern, but even if they go to the maximum, the damage to those roads is going to be done at what they could build today. So adding a few more units is not going to add enough trips. And this trip report, the traffic report was actually updated 7/7/22. And I heard people talk about it was done during COVID. The revised date on it is 7/7/22, I believe. And when people talked about it being done during COVID, well, I think by July of last year, people were already trying to forget COVID. I know the state was. So there was a pure attempt to quit worried about COVID. It may not have been done during the winter when the snowbirds were here, but the damage is gonna be done. They're gonna have to mitigate that some way, during the site plan process, but I am concerned about the affordable housing concept. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, sir. Dory, I did have a question, and it was brought to me by someone, has there been any thoughts of making that portion of Louisiana Avenue one-way?
Not through the rezoning. There has been some design discussion.
Right.
I don't know if it's more appropriate for the site plan, or if it is something that can be considered. There has been, with the intersection of Palmetto and Louisiana, and a possible design change in there. It was just a discussion, so amongst staff, so I'm not sure if it, where it would be appropriate that would be implemented or talked to with the civil engineer or the traffic engineer.
Okay. Obviously, like you said, we're at the zoning request, not at a site plan level, and I know we have to be very careful not to make decisions based on feelings, and I get it. I have a friend that lives at Grace Landing, and tougher because of more people, and I get that. It puts us in a challenge, though, because if what's being asked to do of us is legal and meets the requirements of our land development code, it makes it hard to argue against it. If in the site plan phase, I would definitely like to see those things addressed, the concerns, and possibly any changes to Louisiana Avenue, which if something like that would help traffic flow, maybe. And I don't know that it's the answer, but maybe it is an answer. But I think that's all I have for right now.
All right, thank you so much, Vice Mayor. Ms. Dixon?
I just would prefer to see traffic studies done during our peak season. I mean, these dates are not really telling the whole story of our traffic situation. And I do agree that we need to find a way to incorporate affordable and attainable housing in these higher mixed densities like we did with the annexation. That's all.
I do have one more.
Yeah,
I do have one question. On the site plan that was introduced back in 21, I believe you said, what was the height, the overall height of the two-story building that was suggested?
Under 35, I should have brought the plan, I apologize. I think it was about 30.
30?
Lower. So project engineer saying lower.
Okay.
So under 30.
I mean,
and this was not a subdivision, so it wasn't required to have two entrances.
Okay.
It's a multifamily similar to the Pelican Isle Apartments.
Correct.
So the discussion that anything on Foster was going to be an emergency access, not necessarily a full-blown access, because it is not a subdivision.
That's a very important piece of information. Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
All right. Do you have anything else, Ms. Dixon?
No.
Mr. McPartland?
Well, again, I hear the residents' concerns and going from moving it from 8 to 10, it may not seem like a lot, but in that little piece of area, that is kind of a lot to be. And again, hearing about the affordable workforce housing, attainable housing, I would like to see something in there. But again, our Planning and Zoning Commission, they did not vote this through. It was, 6-1, and we have some very experienced people on the Planning and Zoning Board, and I think I have to go along the way that they went.
All right. Anything else? All right, where's my sheet? All right, so we're done. Public input is done. I would like to call anyone with a motion for this, please. Anyone has a motion?
I make a motion to deny.
Second.
We have a motion to deny. We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
No.
Councilmember McPartland?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
Okay. The motion carries.
All right. Moving on to the next item on our agenda. Let me get back to that. We have unfinished business, item 11A. Who want to go, Mr. Carlisle, or you?
I can.
Yeah.
Do you want to take 5? I think there's some people that might want to, that were here for the other item that we just finished up, may want to.
Yeah.
You want to
No,
just recess
we
for
can
5
just
minutes?
wait, yeah. No, we're not gonna recess.
Okay.
We'll just wait until they clear and then we can move on. They're all clear.
Okay.
Let's move on.
As you know, we've been in negotiations.
Oh, they're leaving? Hang on, Ms. Carl. You guys are leaving? Go ahead and leave. We'll go ahead and wait till you guys leave. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I knew it was gonna be noisy. That's why he said take a recess.
Oh, thank you so much for being so cognizant on that, Mr. Carlisle.
You're welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Got one more.
One straggler.
We got one straggler. Come on.
Nice call.
All right.
All right, Mr. Carlisle, you're on.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So we've been negotiating with, in good faith with the general employees and supervisors unions, and they have ratified the vote. But it was brought to our attention before it came to you all that there was a scrivener's error in that vote where the unpaid lunch was listed as paid.
Right.
So we need to go back to them. It's a minor change, but it still requires them to revote that. I'll try to set up negotiations with them depending on how council votes, but if council votes to move it, have me do that, because it's just a scrivener's error, but if someone voted on it because of that, it would change that outcome. So I think I need to go back to them with that and some other options as well.
Right. Yeah, I think we need to do that and just add it to the agenda for the June 14th meeting, if we can get that done.
They have to take another vote, depending on how you vote, and
Okay.
they may have to take another vote.
Yeah, Mr. Dodd.
Well, there's actually 3 things that the council talked about when we did our caucus on this. One was the scrivener's error, which was relatively severe because it made people think it was a paid lunch when it wasn't. The other one was to allow some flexibility to the admin department heads to do some flex scheduling. Right now, the contract does not allow any flex scheduling within the administrative area. It's basically you work 8 to 5, period.
Right.
And so we talked about and asked for a change in that section to provide the administrative department heads the same flexibility that the non-administrative department heads have to do flex scheduling.
Yeah, but I don't think we need to really get into that right now.
Well, I think it's important to let people know why we're going to vote this down if we're going to vote it down.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's absolutely important to do that, and to understand that it's a council move to do that.
Right. Okay.
I think it's absolutely important that we do that.
Hang on just a second, Mr. Dodd. Mr. Mai, what do you think?
I think you're welcome to talk about anything that you feel is appropriate related to the contract. It's at the discretion of this council to either vote in favor of this item, table this item, or vote it down. If it gets voted down, then Mr. Carlisle will take it back to the union to renegotiate the terms. And if the council, directs us, we'll add or change the contract terms and negotiate that with the union as appropriate.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand that part, but I was just concerned about discussing what the items were or something. Is that, that's not an issue, right?
It's an open.
Okay, absolutely. Go on, Mr. Dodd.
Well, I'm just going to make a motion.
Okay.
And then I'm going to include in the motion the 3 items that I understand we're going to deal with.
Okay.
Okay, because I think it's important that we do that. I move that we do not approve ordinance R-2311. And the city manager then can take that back to the bargaining unit, and that we make 3 changes on two changes on page 9 of the document at the top, where it says employees will be paid for an 8-hour workday in order to be entitled to 1 paid hour of lunch is to say 1 hour unpaid lunch. That's the scrivener's error that we're going
Yes.
to correct.
It is.
The second modification is in hours of operation, under number 1, below that on page 9 also. Administrative employees' hours for work are 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and then language should be added that said that the administrative department heads may produce flex schedules with any employee based on their approval. Okay, and then the third item that we talked about approving this is that the effective date of the contract would move from January 1, 2023 to October 1st, 2022.
22, yes, absolutely.
All right. And that's my motion.
All right,
Second that.
so we have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Do we have any other discussion on that?
Yes, to clarify, the flex hours, are we giving them, like, it's like
If they
half
wanna-
hour later, you leave a half hour, or are we specifying?
If they want to grant, if Ken, for example, wants to grant someone in his department the ability to work between 7 and 4 instead of 8 to 5, or
Right.
or something's happening and they're going to have to, I don't know, MIS, for example, these guys are here all the time,
Right, yeah.
Somebody may come in and say, hey, I've got to cover that meeting tomorrow night, can I come in at noon?
Right.
Right now, under this contract, she has to say no, and then
Okay.
we'd have to pay overtime.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, Mr. Carlisle.
So if I can clarify, Counselor, that's not 100% accurate. These are some of these are exempt employees, and so they can flex their time, such as Barb and that. I don't want to have a situation where one employee says, today I want to start at noon and I want to work till 7. I want to have a definite start date and end date. I don't want to have a
I trust our department heads.
It can be very difficult to
Well, we're
manage.
trusting the department heads in the non-administrative services area. There's nothing there that limits them. They're, in this contract, they're being trusted to do this. And so why are we not providing the same flexibility to the administrative department heads?
They're not all, I'll take council's guidance. I disagree with it, but I'll take your guidance. If the majority of council wants to allow someone to show up anytime they want and go home anytime they want.
I'm not,
with the
Mr.
department
Carlisle,
head.
I'm not saying they can show up anytime they want and go home anytime they want. You're exaggerating what I'm saying.
He's talking about the department heads allowing somebody
Department
under...
heads have to arrange that, schedule it,
under
manage
certain
it.
circumstances, right. Okay. Any other comments?
I mean, what I understand Mr. Dodd is saying is the manager manages.
Right.
That's the way it's supposed to be, and I agree with that.
Right.
I would just like to say, and I've said it before, is we heard, we listened, and we care about our employees, and this is hopefully going to show that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Exactly, yeah. That's what we're looking at. That's why we're making some of these changes and going back to October 1, so.
All right.
Any other discussion?
No, sir.
Do we need public input on this?
Yes.
Yes. Anyone from the
Yes.
public who would like to speak on this? No one? Do we have anyone on Zoom?
No one has raised their hand.
All right, public input is closed. No further discussion. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
And Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, moving on. We're in a 11B now. Approve the purchase of a short-term disability. I know we had talked about this before until the contract was settled. I think we're close to that. Can we go ahead and move forward with that? Mr.
I move
Carlisle?
approval. May I?
Yeah, Mr. Carlisle, go ahead.
So you had tabled this, so you need to remove it from the table?
Oh, okay, it was tabled? I
I'd
don't
make the
see-
motion to remove this item from the table.
Okay, we had a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, item is moved from the table now.
Move approval.
Move approval,
Second.
we have a second, any discussion?
Yep, slight. I just want it so people understand, especially the employees that we do have sitting in the room. This is to give another opportunity for you to be paid when you don't have sick time to do it, a short-term disability plan to help meet that gap between long-term disability and sick time. So this is very important that we implement this to help our employees. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Do we have anyone on Zoom?
No one has raised their hand.
All right, public input closed. Council, do we have any other discussion on this? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
And Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you.
All right, moving on to item what is 11C. Consider approval of charter officers' pay raises.
I'll take it.
Yes,
I'd like to
Mr.
make a
Nunn.
motion to approve the charter officer pay raises. We were waiting for the contract to be finished, but I think we're at an appropriate time to go ahead and move forward with that.
All
So I
right.
make a motion to approve the pay raises for the charter officers.
Can we be specific as to when those pay raises occur?
Those pay raises would,
And
okay,
be
yeah.
specific as to the amounts as contained in the,
Yeah, but that's the, no, I have the sheet, Chris.
You got it?
Here, you need this.
Yeah, you got that?
It's this one?
Do you need specific numbers?
It's this one, yeah.
Now, can I ask a question while you're looking at that in the middle of your motion?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Dodd.
We talked when we did this about the fact that our city attorney was
Yes.
leaving, and if we
Correct.
make this effective before his date of termination, that the financial office would basically compute and provide him a supplemental payment for the difference. Is that still something we're gonna intend to do?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So I'd like to make the motion to approve the charter officer pay raises back to October 1st of 2022 for the city manager, the city attorney, and the city clerk positions. Mr. Dodd gave me this really small piece of paper.
Can you just reference the chart?
And we'll reference the compensation study chart for the proper amounts.
Does that sound good,
Is
Mr.
that
Mai?
good, Mr. Mai?
yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's
All right.
attached to the agenda, too.
So,
I can read it if need be.
I have glasses and I can't read it.
Tiny, right?
It is.
All right, do we have, hang on, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Did we make the motion?
I made a motion,
Yes.
yes.
And we seconded it, right?
Yes.
All right, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Anyone on Zoom? All
No
right,
one's raised their hand.
Public input's closed. Any further deliberation from
Yeah,
council?
yeah.
Mr. McPartland?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to go back to what we discussed all along the way is I feel the officers don't eat until the enlisted get paid. And until those contracts are firm, I can't, in good faith, give the charter officers their raise at this time.
Yeah, well, that's fine. All right, any other discussion? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
And Councilmember McPartlin?
No.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to approve the city clerk's renegotiated employment contract. And let me tell you, this was tough. Jeanette is a tough negotiator, so it took us a while, multiple iterations, but at the end of the day, we came through and we have a product for you all, and it's up to you. I think it's a good
What's
product.
the effective date?
Um,
Because there's none in the one in the
oh,
meeting.
what's the date on?
So, here's a little bit of a struggle is we don't have the policy for
Yes.
that won't be coming till the next meeting. We're still, I spoke with the clerk, and we're still recommending approval of the council today, but the clerk and I are in agreement. She's going to wait till that policy gets approved before she signs the agreement, because she wants to know what you guys approve, or if you approve a policy, before she signs the agreement, because it affects her. So this will be your approval, and it'll be effective once she signs it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, then I'll move approval of the employment agreement with the city clerk to be effective on the date that it's executed by the city clerk.
Yes, second. All right, any discussion on that? Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Is there anyone on Zoom?
No one has raised their hand.
All right, public input's closed. Council, do we have any other comments or anything? If not, Madam Clerk,
concern.
call the roll.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
And Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 12, new business. Resolution number R-23-09, accepting the second quarter financials. Mr. Kilgore. Oh, do we need, you need to read that, or do we usually read that?
Reading resolutions is not
No,
required.
yeah, that's all right, that's fine.
if you
Mr.
want.
Kilgore, you're on.
Thank you. This is for the second quarter of this fiscal year, which runs through March 31st, excuse me. It presents to you the budget adjustments that were made during the quarter, both by the city council and by the city manager under his authorities. There were no adjustments out of the general fund reserve and replacement account. No expenditures thus far this year out of that account. On your page 348, I highlight the general fund, and you can see that the expenditures were 49.1% at 50% of the year, so we are barely under that target. Most of that is the non-departmental, where we charge, or we actually pay the contribution to the CRA fund from general fund to the CRA, and we do that at the first of the year. Actually, it's required by law before December 31st. And also, we pay some annual insurance premiums out of that account, so that causes that to look a little bit high at this point in the year, but it's well within budget. There again on page 348, the American Rescue Plan. One new development is the amount of interest earnings that we're able to capture on those deposits. Those, according to the regulations, are allowed to be used for any use. And we did have a couple of items, smaller items during the quarter, and we were able to allocate monies to those additional items from what council had originally designated by using the interest income portion of those funds. As far as the general fund forecasting the balance, as I said, the R&R account is unused at this point, and it looks like we are fairly on target as far as meeting what we have projected as the reserves for the end of this year. On page 349, we present the stormwater fund. I would tell you that the stormwater fees at the end of March had shown 92.6% collected. I just checked today, and we are now at the 95.4% collection rate, which, considering how much we got in the last 6 months of last fiscal year for late payments, I think we will be fine in meeting that budget. For the golf course, you might note that the operating expenses are right at 50% at that point in the year. But the other real positive point is the revenues are up about $100,000 more than they were at that point in time last year. So we're doing much better in the golf course financially. In the airport fund, the operating expenses do show over 50% expended through March 31st, and that is because of the insurance premiums. We are looking at some changes in the marketplace, and of course the additions to the airport facilities cause those premiums, the property insurance premiums, to go up. I will tip you off that we are concerned that the insurance rates, like most residential and commercial properties these days, are skyrocketing, so we will have to deal with that in the next year budget. The building fund, the excess in the operating expense, the operating expenses are much lower than you would expect at this point in the budget because of some positions we budgeted that have not been filled. It's difficult to find applicants in that line of work. I won't go through all the detail pages of each particular fund that we have in the city unless you should have some questions. We do present the capital projects and the full list there. You have to keep in mind in looking at that, a number of those large ticket items are the result of grant proceeds that either haven't been fully implemented or permitted or for various other reasons. I am on page 356. And going on to page 357, the interest rate environment has improved our position as far as the return we can get on our deposits. We do have those in safe funds. I present to you the interfund loan statuses. And of course, on the debt, as far as amounts due to outside parties, there are no outstanding bond issues or no long-term notes payable for the city at this point. We have made the final payment in this year on the paving improvements notes. You do get a list of accomplishments during the quarter from all the departments, so we give you all that report. And other than that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
All right, I don't have any questions. I actually don't have any questions. I was able to really watch the advisory meeting and follow up, so I'm good. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Kilgore?
Great job.
All right, thank you so much, sir.
Very detailed, perfect, thank you.
All right, where are we at on this? Do
we need a motion?
Yes, we do.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution R 23-09.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Do we have anyone on Zoom?
No one has raised their hand.
All right, any further discussion from council? Anyone? Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item 12B. I don't know that we're at this point yet. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I'd like to make a motion that we not approve anything and just move forward
Agreed.
for now.
So we have a second for that?
Yes, second.
All right. Any other discussion on that, on item 12B? All right, so we're going to go ahead and call the roll on that, Madam Clerk.
You're going to take public comment?
Did I? Not yet?
If you're denying it, yes.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this?
Okay, nope.
Hearing none. Do we have anyone on Zoom?
No one has raised their hand.
All right, public input's closed. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nunn?
Yes.
And Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next item on our list, city attorney matters. Mr. Mai.
Nothing else to add today.
All right, Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council, as you know, this is my last meeting in Sebastian. I'll still be here for a couple more weeks, but I'd like to tell everybody what a great opportunity it was to serve the citizens of Sebastian and you all in making a lot of things happen with the city. Fortunate to have good staff and good people working for us and the support of council and the residents and our staff. And, you know, I'm really thankful you all had given Brian an opportunity to be able to help show you what a great talent he is. I would just like for you all to remember the communication to staff really needs to go through him so that he has a full grasp of what's going on. I think it would be helpful for him rather than, you go to staff and it comes back and he's got to try to figure it out. You know, our charter requires that, and let's help him be successful and let's work with him and not get in the, just get into the weeds of it because it doesn't, he's going to be in a large learning curve and he's going to need all the direct information he can get. So any help you guys can give him, you have a lot of experience on this council as well, so we appreciate it. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity to work with council and looking forward to the city still continuing to move forward.
All right, sir. Since that was under your matters, and I'm going to talk a little bit under mine, but Mr. McPartlin is going to go first. But I want to ask you first before you leave. The box culvert that we're putting across the road on Laconia, it's already been marked out. What is the expected date of beginning that project? Do you have any idea?
I don't know when the contractor's gonna move in. I know we've already we've already issued the purchase orders for the bridge, and also, I believe we put the purchase orders in for the panels, but I'm not exactly sure the start date of the bridge work.
Yeah, I noticed they did a lot of work out there already, marking everything, so usually that's a sign that things are moving in the right direction.
Well, they're gonna have to put in some sheet piling and do some other things in anticipation of putting that bridge in.
Okay, absolutely. All right, thank you so much, sir. Mr. McPartland, you're up.
Oh, did you ask Jeanette? She's good?
Huh?
She's good? She's happy?
Oh, yeah.
Why you gotta skip Jeanette?
Yeah. I spent a bunch of days with her already, so, no, Jeanette, do you have anything?
Mr. Mayor, I just need to announce that the FDOT meeting that you announced earlier in the meeting has been moved to August.
Oh.
So, I'm going to post something on Facebook tomorrow, and I'm going to put something on the doors in case anybody shows up, so.
Okay,
Tomorrow.
yeah, we need to, yeah.
Is that what you got notified of during the meeting? Awesome.
All right, so, Mr. Nunn, since you made that announcement, let's just start it over from here, that is not going to be happening from the brief announcements.
Correct. The FDOT meeting is now going to be scheduled for August. It is not going to be happening on May 25th. So look forward to our website for more information.
All right, thank you so much. Now, Mr. McPartland.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to bring up discussing lowering the speed limit to 25, you know, there's a lot of residential areas. I think Louisiana, we just discussed earlier. I believe it's 30 miles an hour down there. There's a western portion of Benedictine where it has the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, but you can't really have two cars going 30 miles back and forth. And I know we had just developed some new signs, and there's a lot of 30-mile-an-hour signs that we did install. But if you think about even parts of Main Street, when you get down there past the golf course, you shouldn't be having two cars going 30. And even on, I know South Easy has had a lot of commotion about, even if you make it 25 miles an hour, they're still going to go 35. But I mean, I actually picked up a dog at Wimbro and South Easy yesterday that was out walking scared of the lightning and took it and found its owner today. But again, some of these streets, you know, at 30 miles an hour, everybody's doing 40. So I think we need to have it, you know, 25 in most of the residential unless otherwise, you know, noticed. I mean, I can see some of the roads at 30, yes, but there are portions, I mean, in the back in the Highlands, any of those streets, you shouldn't be doing 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, I think that's the state minimum that's posted, so it's 30 miles an hour. That's, if there's no speed limit sign on a road in a jurisdiction, then automatically it's 30 miles an hour. So I have no problem with us reducing it down if we think that's going to benefit everybody here. It's going to cost a lot of money, but.
How does Port St. Lucie do it? They just put the signs and say the speed limit's 25 miles an hour unless otherwise posted.
Well, I think they got to go through a lot more than just putting the signs up. You have to do a lot more than just that. You just can't put the signs up. We can't just go out there and throw up 25-mile-an-hour signs.
Well, you're not going to throw up 25 miles. You're just going to have in the main entrances in the city, the speed limit is 25 miles an hour unless otherwise posted. That was the big campaign that Chief Boldock did down in Port St. Lucie before he retired.
Right.
I'd kind of like to see a study of some kind. I don't have any problem with doing the 25. But I'd kind of like to see something in, you know, somebody sit down and do a study and say, okay, here's the impact of doing that, here's the advantages, here's what it takes to do it, you know, and the cost and so forth to make that decision. And maybe try to get some public input also on it. But I agree 100% with what Councilmember Partland's saying about the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. There's places you certainly don't want to do 30 in the city, and it's awfully convenient to do more than that. So I wouldn't have any issue with 25, but I'd kind of like to see something in writing that lays out the process, you know, what we have to do, what kind of approvals we might have to get, if any, and what the overall cost is to do the sign change outs and so forth.
Well, not only that, but the state MOT though.
I'm not sure I'm comfortable putting one sign at our border that says speeds 25 unless posted differently. I think I'd like to replace all the 30 signs with 25 signs if we go that way, which is a cost that we'd have to incur as we go through the process, so.
Yeah, but I think it's also, the state has an MOT model that you have to follow too, and that's why I'm saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying is somebody put together a white paper that says, here, if we do this, here's what we would have to do to make it happen.
Right, exactly, yeah, we can have somebody look at that and see what it would entail to move in that direction. I don't have a problem with that either.
I don't know.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. When I saw this on the agenda, I immediately started looking into different studies that have been done out there, news articles, et cetera. And I mean, I get it. Some of these streets, and I drive them, my daughter goes to the charter junior high, so I go through some of the residential streets, and, you know, yeah, we can do 30, but I don't, because it does, like you said, it doesn't feel like it should be that fast. And, you know, in all these studies that I was reading, it was saying, you can put the speed limit signs up all you want. We all know everybody's breaking them, right?
Yeah.
People are gonna drive the speed that they feel comfortable. And I feel like putting all this money into the study and dropping it down, it's just gonna make more people either break the law more, or they're still gonna disregard it, and we're gonna be out all of this money. I mean, people do need to slow down, but unless we're out there enforcing these speeds, the sign's not going to make a difference.
Well, not only that, you can't enforce if we go to 25, the state law is already that you can travel up to 5 miles over the posted speed limit and not get a ticket in this state. Somebody may be able to stop you and get a warning, so now you're still back up to 30 from 25. Without the fear of getting cited for that.
Yes.
So, because the state law says you can't write them for 5 miles or under the, over the speed limit, so.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen the emails on South Easy Street, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I walk South Easy Street every day, pretty much, and I know there's a gigantic effort being put in by the special police department to try to control South Easy Street. But I'll tell you, unless they have 2 cruisers sitting there all day long, every day, it's not gonna happen.
No.
People are still gonna do 40. They're gonna run those stop signs because there's no reason to stop there. You go, well, why am I stopping? There's no cars coming on that street, and you just right through it, so.
And I was reading in some of these bigger cities, and even in Europe, where they reduced the speed, they've actually had more pedestrian fatalities because it's causing more aggravated, irate drivers, because now they're having to go even slower than they already wanted to go. Or, you know, too, you're on 95, speed limit 70, someone's doing 65 because that's what they feel comfortable doing, and you're doing 70, and it causes all the chaos and the lane switching.
Oh, it does.
Sometimes, you know, just the sign's not going to make the difference, it's the drivers.
Yeah, it's just about educating the public. Mr.
Yes.
Nunn.
So, I will say that I am not in favor of changing the whole city to 25.
No.
The studies that have been done on the streets that people complained about usually comes back that most of the drivers are traveling on those roads within the 80th, I believe, 80th percentile of the speed limit. Sure, there are people that are going to speed. You're never going to stop people from speeding. You're not going to do it. There's always going to be 1 or 2 cars going when there's no police officers there, and they're going to drive fast, and a speed limit sign's not going to solve that. All you're going to do is create more speeders by dropping the speed limit.
Yes, and sorry to interrupt, I mean, I've even seen, and I'm sure you have, people have actually posted on Facebook saying, hey, there's a cop here on 512 between here, and everyone's like, thanks for the warning.
And they go a different direction.
Yes.
Now, that does not mean that I do not disagree that there are some streets in our city, like maybe Louisiana Avenue is a great example of that, that where, you know, a curve that might require a lower speed limit for safety. I mean, there are definitely situations that may require a lower speed limit. I do not personally, I drive 31 or 32 miles per hour throughout this entire city, and I do not feel I'm going too fast. Usually I feel like I'm crawling, but my wife yells at me when I'm telling her too bad. So I don't think the whole city needs to be changed. I think that maybe if I talk to the chief about this, and I did talk to the chief to find out, you know, law enforcement perspective, they are the ones dealing with these streets and the speeds and the speeders. While there may be a couple streets throughout the city, I don't believe it's a whole city situation.
And again, I didn't say the entire city. I'm talking a lot of the residential areas that you're in. I mean, I didn't say like 512 or you know, Barber Street or anything like that, but there's the roads that are back there. I think about my own street, Belfast. You can't do more than 30 miles an hour on that street. You can't. And so it should be, you know, and there's no speed limit sign on the street at all. That's what I'm saying, for where there's no signs. I don't want to change, because I know I talked to Karen and we did a big cost. But on the residential streets, the main ones, there's no reason that it can't be 25, because it's not posted as 30 to start with.
But it is in your driver's test.
It is posted, because Florida statute says 30 is the limit, regardless of what.
On my street does not have a speed limit sign.
So that makes it 30.
Mine don't have one either.
Mine does not either,
Right.
but the speed's 30 miles per hour through
But I
the
think-
residential areas.
I've got
Right.
one with a big sign that says, if you do this, you're gonna be fined this much money, if you do that, you're gonna be fined
Right,
this much
and it
If you would
doesn't
slow
slow
down on
down.
your street,
Yeah, and that sign is wrong because those prices have changed since those signs were installed. So
Oh, I
those
bet.
prices are
more?
Yeah,
Yes.
those prices are incorrect on
I'm
those signs
slowing
that we
down.
have posted right now. They're incorrect, so, yeah. But I think one of the, and I thank Mr. McPartland for bringing that up, and it's great to look out for, but I think what we can do, in the interim is task our police department with doing some proactive patrols or some selective enforcement details in those areas where we have issues, large issues about speeders or people running stop signs. And I think over time, that would certainly slow down people when they realize people are getting stopped for running this stop sign. People are getting tickets for speeding on this local street. And it won't take long for the word to get out. We're not a big metropolitan city, so it won't take long that we're actually enforcing those laws. And I think if our police department does some of those patrols like that, that would certainly slow down things and make people more cautious about where they are. So that's just my opinion on that. All right, anything else, Mr.
No,
McFarland?
sir.
All right, so it's on me. Mr. Carlisle, I want to thank you. I know this is your last meeting with us. You're leaving on the 9th, and I just want to thank you for your service to this city over your 5-year tenure here, and always being there for me, answering questions. Whenever I needed something, I was able to call you. You would actually get back to me, and sometimes you knew the answers straight away. You didn't have to go look it up, and I appreciated that. So I just want to thank you for what you've done in this city. That's it for me. Mr. Nunn.
I want to echo that sentiment first of all and say thank you for not just being a great city manager, but always putting up with my phone calls, whether they were 8 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, maybe a few 11 o'clock at night phone calls. The weekends, thank you for always answering my questions and humoring me with some of my request for information or request for knowledge about what was going on. You are going to be missed. I know the amount of knowledge that you have, and it's amazing, and that is going to be missed. And so I want to say thank you for being that person, not just a great city manager, but a friend. And you're going to be missed. I lost a good friend this past Saturday. And it reminds me to remind everybody, tell your family you love them, and never take a day for granted, because you never know when it's your last one.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Nunn. Ms. Dixon.
I don't have any matters, and yeah, Mr. Carlisle, it's been great working with you. I know we had our meeting where I asked for you to adjust some things, and you adjust it right away, and you really have been a great manager to work with, so thank you so much. Best of luck.
Mr. Dodd, you're last tonight. We did that
Okay.
on purpose.
I only have 23 things.
Okay.
Okay.
You know.
He's short
Okay,
tonight.
I
Only
also want to
23.
thank Paul. I have had a great relationship with Paul. He and I have had some very spirited discussions in his office, and it's been fun to do that. And I also want to thank him because, I don't know, just so everybody knows, he is making every effort humanly possible to assist Brian in his transition. And I've had a conversation with Brian about some things, and Brian was very, 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 very complimentary of the introductions that Mr. Carlisle's made with him. He's escorted him to the county and introduced him to all the right people, and he's getting him moving in the right direction. And I'm sure that in the future he's going to be a resource to Brian. And that's when the 11 o'clock phone calls might still be going through to him. So, but I do want to thank him. And I also want to thank, this is not about Mr. Carlisle, but I noticed today when I went down to make a turn to come around to Louisiana, the American Legion has finished their project on that piece of property. They haven't finished it?
No, they can't. It's not CO'd yet, is it? I don't think so.
Well, okay, I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say anyway.
Yeah.
I was concerned it would never get done, and it looks really good. Now, they may have some technical issues that they have to deal with the CO, that's fine, I'm not gonna get involved in that. But it looks very good.
Great project.
And I just wanna make sure that we say that, because sometimes when people come in and say they're gonna redo a piece of property and they're gonna make it look better, I really wonder if it's gonna work out, but that one did, and it looks really good, so. All right.
Yeah,
That's
it does look really good over there, and it's not on the city what's happening over there, it's on the contractor, so.
Yeah, so-
I just want to put that out there, it's not on the city, it's the
Beautiful
contractor,
project.
so it is a beautiful project, and I've been over there sitting under the trees with the guys out there in the middle of the moat part, so it's really nice
It's
out
really
there,
nice,
so.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, one other thing before I adjourn, I want to thank Felicia. She's our environmental technician, and I hope I didn't cross her boss or anything like this. A couple days ago, I spoke to the people from the Marine Resources Council, and they were talking about this project, and we heard them tonight. But it's really good when you go out there and you hear them on the ground and you see it. And I wanted to take Felicia out there with us because she's our environmental technician to see what's happening, and she was very gracious. She didn't even have her boots on. She had little flats on, and she was walking through the woods. So I want to thank you, Felicia. I hope you got a lot of good information from that, because this is a very good partnership for us to continue working with all of these environmental groups and everything else, so that we keep our city moving forward. So, and the Marine Resources Council is a really good one. And I think many of us, I know I have been to some LID conferences, low impact development conferences at the MRC. So Felicia's been there and others have been there as well. So it's very informative, and that we have somebody like that around us and want to make sure that we protect our lagoon. And like I said, that's a priority for me, and it's one of the reasons why I spoke to them and took Felicia out there with us and take a tour of that piece of property. It's going to be really nice. It's not ready for the public yet, but when it does, their plans, it's going to be really beautiful, and everybody will get the opportunity to go out there and see what they're doing with the seagrass and the mangroves and all the other stuff. So it'll be great. Again, thank you so much, Felicia. And this meeting is adjourned.